It's an interesting topic within our community. I have a lot of friends who are single. They're always wanting to, like, when am I going to meet that right person? Or they're always pressuring themselves. It was a spontaneous thing. We went in there for information, and 2 hours later, we were married. We tell each other's dark secret. That's what marriage is. You have to, like, build on so many different components. The guy was cheating on her with another guy. It was just like, where do you go from here?
Hi, my queer family. I'm Javier Lopez. Hope you're all safe and sound. In this episode, we will talk about marriage and how society creates this arrangement, especially within gay individuals. Octavio will be sharing with us a little bit about himself, his incredible marriage experience, and how he has dealt with family and friends. Also, a very interesting and unexpected story involving a friend's wedding. For the people listening at home, could you tell us a little bit about yourself to begin with, just to break the ice and people get to know you a little bit more?
Okay. So my name is Octavio. I am a Chicago native, but I was raised in Monterrey, which is, kind of like funny. It's like, was born in Chicago, raised in Monterrey, went back to Chicago, high school years, then went off to college and things like that. I moved back to Mexico in 2006 on a business opportunity that was given to me right after college, and I accepted. And I lived in Monterrey for till 2017, I believe. That's when I came back to the States. And then I currently work, of course, for Facebook as a leave of absence specialist. And I mean, extra hobbies, movies. I like to travel. So, I know during this pandemic, a lot of my family and friends were like, why are you traveling, Octavio? I'm like, I carry my antibacterial and my mask, and I just make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to stay safe.
So are you still traveling?
I'm traveling within the States and going to Mexico, but Mexico is like the only country that's letting American citizens in. Or if you're Mexican American, I have dual citizenship, so I go back and forth, just to like visit family and things like that. Yeah. So, that's one of the things I like to do with my husband. What else? Something about, I'm basically, that's pretty much it about me. I'm like, born in Chicago, raised in Mexico, came back to the States. Super fun, basic.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing that with us. So today we're going to be talking about marriage.
Yes.
So why marriage?
Well, it's an interesting topic within our community. I have a lot of friends who are single, and they're always wanting to, like, when am I going to meet that right person? Or they're always pressuring themselves to meeting that right person. And, I want to, like, a lot of the times they'll be like, I want to have what you have. But a lot of the times...
You're married.
I'm married, yeah. But a lot of the times I have to tell my friends, I was like, if you guys have to work on a relationship, like my husband and I didn't get to where we're at. It took us time. We met in 2015 in Mexico at an event, and we built the relationship there as friends, right? And then it started extending, and then we started getting to know each other better and things like that. It was a process. Yep. And the way I see with my friends, they're just like, I want to have all that. I'm like, don't go looking for it. You have to be patient. It's gonna come. I wasn't looking for it when I met my husband, and I was just like, let's just be friends, because at that moment in time, I wasn't ready for a relationship. I was still trying to, figure out, like, what do I want, right? And it was the little things that I started seeing that, why not give it a shot, right? Like, throw yourself at it, right? So it takes time, and I think that it's important for people to know that, I've been married for 3 years, but I've been with my partner for like 5 years already. And it's not everything how everyone always sees it, like, oh my god, you guys are like the perfect couple. And we do
Yeah.
have our we have our ups and downs, you know. It's like any
Like
normal
everybody
relationship.
else, yeah. And this is what people
Yeah,
don't see. They think it's just what people might post on Instagram is just a picture of a holiday, whatever. That's not just our life. There's a lot more to it that you don't know, but you need to know. Sorry, carry on.
exactly. It's like yeah, I'm very well, this is, and these are things that, like, I tell my friends. I was like, yes, we're a happy couple, but we have our issues as well. I'm like, so don't look at us like, oh, you guys are like the ideal couple and things like that. No, you guys, you know, it takes time to get to where you're at, and you have to find someone that you guys are going to have that special chemistry with, you know. And it's going to happen. Just, you know, and sometimes my husband and I are like, when we get invited to go out to, like, with friends and things like that, most of our friends are single. And at 1 o'clock, my husband and I are like, okay, let's have our last drink and let's go home, right? Because we're at that stage already where it's just like, I'm not going to be up till 3 in the morning, because there's other priorities in our life. We're hanging out, we're having fun, but we
Yeah,
cut our time because it's like, let's just go. We're not like, we're done with all this, basically, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
we still go out and we have fun and we hang out with our friends, and, you know, but they'll come up to us and be like, hey, you know, how did you guys get, like, to where this is at? Like, how can I get this?
It
I'm
is a
like,
process.
I'm like, there's a process. I'm like, you
We
know,
have to
yeah,
do this and this and that to get where we are. I think what people might not be seeing in that particular situation when you go out is like they want to have what you have, but they don't want to go through the process. They just want things just like that. And it's like it doesn't happen overnight because they want
yeah.
to still have it. They want to still be able to go out and party until 3 in the morning, which is fine. You can still do that. You know, life doesn't end when you get married. But as you mentioned, you have other important things to attend as well. It's not just partying and partying and partying. So, sorry, I kept interrupting you. Carry on.
No, no, that's good. I mean, that you make a good point, you know, about partying, partying, and partying. I mean, I did that when I was 20 and in my 30s, and I think I'm at a place now where I just, like, my priorities have changed. I mean, my husband and I like to do things like, let's go, you know, like, let's go to Houston, or let's go to San Antonio. We live in Austin, but I mean, we try to do things, you know, for him and I, to at least build on that. And, like, for us
Yeah,
together, I've noticed that we have such a good time. I mean, we love our friends and our family, but the time that I have with my husband, I always find something different that I'm learning about him when I'm sharing those experiences.
yeah.
And I tell my friends, if you want that, there is a process. I'm like, you just don't go looking for it. I'm like, a lot of the times they'll ask me, like, how did you guys, like, we'll tell them how we met and how we continued our relationship. But I feel like a lot of my friends, you know, not that I'm judging or anything, they'll be like, but I'm going into Grinder and things like that. I'm just like,
I mean, some people find love in
I'm
Grinder,
like,
whether
I
it
don't know
lasts
about,
six
and I
months
tell them,
or a year,
oh,
but who knows?
that's true. I mean, and I'm not an expert in any of that. I mean, I'm only an expert of my personal experiences that I'm able to share and, like, let people know, hey, this is what me and my husband, you know, have. I mean, and it's like I said like you said at the beginning, we're probably like the most super basic people ever, but we're so
I
cool to
was
be around.
joking.
We're so cool to be. People, like, literally like, oh my god, I want to hang out with you guys. I'm like, we're boring. I'm like, we laugh at our own jokes, you know, and people are probably not going to understand that. But, you know, I think for me, that's what counts in a marriage: how you get along with your partner, the love that you have for each other. I mean, the situations that could arise in a family issue, like his parents live in Merida, near Cancun, and we were just freaking out about Delta going, hitting
Yeah.
his parents' city, and we were like really worried about them, and things like that. Or even my dad, who lives in Chicago, with all this COVID stuff that's going on, and we think about our family, we start thinking about other things that really have value to us, which is our family and our closest friends. And we're like, just like, this is marriage, right? Like, there's other components that that are just more than just pictures that we put on Instagram. Is just, that connectivity and love that we have for each other, that we have each other's backs.
Yes,
So
definitely. I think people need to take the time to actually know the couple or the other person better instead of just thinking, I want to have what you have and thinking that that's it, because that's not it. So for the ones listening, you need to go through the process like Octavio did with his husband as well. So I know you want to discuss a little bit about your friend's wedding, but can we talk a little bit about your wedding, if you had one, or when you got married and how that process was?
Well, this is interesting, and it's a good thing that you bring it up. When Aaron and I got married, my husband's name's Aaron. I don't. He was living in Mexico when I came back to the States in 2017, and when he came on a trip, it was nearing the date of him returning back to Mexico, and in our heart, like something in us was telling us that when two people are apart, things are about like things will change, or the circumstances are going to change. And we were dealing with that issue together, that it was like it was hurting us because I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want him to go back to Mexico, but I knew that I couldn't go back to Mexico because of a job opportunity that I got in San Antonio. So one day before he was flying out, we were in downtown walking around. Like we went to the museums, and like I took him to the Towers of America in San Antonio. And we walked right by the courthouse, and it was like around, I would say 11 in the morning. And I told Aaron, we had some friends, or we have some friends in San Antonio who were gonna get married in August of that year. And we had dinner with them like a week before, and they were like, oh, we went to the courthouse, we got the information of the marriage license and things like that. And I was like, Aaron, we're here in downtown, we should like go get information about like what the marriage license process is about. Yeah. Right.
So hang on. Did you actually discuss anything about marriage before this, spur of the moment? Or you just were like,
it was spontaneous. It was very spontaneous. And my mom used to have a saying, Dios te pone las cosas God puts the things in your path how they're supposed to be placed, or the order they're supposed to be placed. And it was a spontaneous thing. We went in there for information, and 2 hours later we were married.
Wow. Okay. I kind of like thought that was gonna happen, but it's not what I thought it was gonna happen to begin with.
And we were excited because the only thing that was a little bit hard that day was that we had to look for a judge, and it was a Friday, and the judges leave at 2. So it was almost around 12 when we were getting all this information, and I was just like, we have 2 hours to like look for a judge if we really want to get married. So my husband was just like, he was still like, what the hell's like, what's going on? Like, I was like so excited, like, oh my God, let's go look for a judge. Like, let's do this. Like, that way you stay and you don't have to go back to Mexico, and we'll be together. And we were just not thinking of the consequences that would come after, of the emotional effect from our family and friends. Wait, I'll get there. This is so I was excited. I was like, oh my God, we could do this. It's $80. Like, let's do it. Let's get married. We'll be together forever, because we had never talked about marriage. I think it only came up once before I moved back to the States. And then we never touched the subject again. That year I went to go see him in March for like a week and a half. I took PTO from my prior job where I was at to go see him and, just make sure that things between us were okay. We had to keep that light going in the candle,
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what, my trip is scheduled for May. At the end of May, he came to San Antonio, and he was here for about almost 3 weeks, I would say. But yeah, one day before he was supposed to go back, we got married, and I got so like excited because we got the marriage license. The judge, and ironically, the first 2 judges that we went to were like, oh no, they were just like disregarding that we wanted to get married. And I don't know if they were like homophobic or something. One of the judges was a female. I'm not going to say her name. It really doesn't matter. But she was like really like bitchy. She's just like, no, like basically saying, I don't have time. Like, it's just not like, I I can't, right? So we're
Right.
like, okay, we didn't think anything of it. But then my husband later on was just like, do you think it's because we're two guys getting married? I was like, I hope not. I'm like, I hope not because
Yeah.
but I didn't think about that. I was like, we have an hour before any of the judges leave. So I go into another judge's chamber and he was getting ready to go out, like leave to lunch or something. And I was just like, you know what, that's fine. I get it. So we went, I was like, the third is the charm, right? The third is the charm. So we walk into the chambers and then the assistant was like, oh, well, our judge, he actually leaves at 3, but he's there and I don't think he has anyone right now. Let me see if he could take you guys. And then the secretary, the assistant comes out. He's like, oh, he's ready to see you guys. So then
Were
I
you
walk
nervous at
in.
that point, or
No,
were you still
I
excited?
wasn't. I wasn't nervous. I think my husband was, and he was still like in shock that we were actually doing it. But the moment I walk into the judge's chamber, I looked at the memorabilia that he had all over his wall. He had signs from the Chicago Bulls, the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Cubs. And then I saw the plaque on his table that's at Northeastern Illinois University. And I was just like, oh my God. And then he was like, oh, well, good afternoon. How can I help you guys? I'm like, I love the whole Chicago memorabilia. I'm a Chicago native myself, and I'm a huge Chicago Cubs fan and Chicago Bears fan. And he started laughing. He's like, really? And then we started talking about like statistics and scorings and, like things
You
like that.
completely forgot about marriage.
Yeah, we totally forgot about marriage, right? And then I was like, oh, you have a Northeastern ticket. I saw that. I see that you went to Northeastern, or did you go? And he's just like, oh yeah, I got my, bachelor's and things like that there. I was like, oh my God, that's where I went. And then we started talking about, like, oh my God, yeah, this and that. And my husband was just looking at me. He's like, get to the point. I was like, oh, well, we're here because we need somebody to marry us. And I think you're like the only cool judge available. And he started laughing. He's like, yeah, I'll marry you guys. He's like, you got witnesses? And I was just like, do we need witnesses? And he's just like, hold on. So he went to go get his secretaries. His secretaries were our witnesses to the wedding. And I was like, this is happening. I was like, because I don't know if my mom in heaven, because, rest in peace, my mom's not with us anymore, or God didn't want this to happen, like it wouldn't have happened, right? But there were his two secretaries that were like our witnesses, and we're like so super. Aaron was super nervous, and he's just like, we did the ceremony thing, and it was pretty fast. And do you take each other to be each other's, spouse, sickness and in health? And we're both like, yes, yes, yes. And then once we got married, we started walking. Like we went to go pay for another process of the paperwork to get it apostille and get it like through the system, and just basically getting our copies and things like that we had gotten married, right? So we're leaving the courthouse with our paperwork and our big yellow manila envelope, and then I open it up and I'm looking at the marriage license that we were married on June 16, 2017. Yeah, the shit got real on that day, right? And I was like, oh, let's take a picture with it. I was very overexcited, right? That I took the picture and I posted. Back then, I didn't have a lot of people on Instagram. Now I have like the same amount that I have on Facebook, because I was like, why not? So the picture transferred over into Facebook, because whatever you put in Instagram, it automatically goes into Facebook. And my entire family and my dad was like, an hour later, we were eating at Lupe's Tortillas restaurant in San Antonio at La Cantera. And my dad was like calling me, like, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to like pick up, right? And I didn't even listen to it, because I was excited that he was not going to go back to Mexico. And then I was like, okay, what are the next steps? So then I was just like.
So at this point, you didn't know that the post was on Facebook?
No, I was overexcited that I forgot that Instagram automatically posted it to Facebook.
Right. Yeah.
So I shouldn't have posted it anyhow, because my husband's like, it's your fault. You shouldn't have posted. And I do take accountability for that, because, I take pictures of everything, even of things that I'm eating. I mean, my cell phone needs first now, right? But anyhow, super basic fun, right? So And then the families, when I started looking at the messages, I started calling my dad, and my dad was freaking out. He's like, "What did you do?" And then my brothers were like, "Why didn't you invite us to your wedding?" And I was just like, "Oh my God." I was just like, and I was like, "How did you guys find out?" And he's like, my brother's like, "It's all over Facebook. And you have like 100 likes and 100 like people saying F you for not inviting them to your
Wow.
wedding."
It was
I
already.
was like, "Oh my God." And then I get along very well with one of my mom's older sisters who lives in Monterrey, and she doesn't have a Facebook, but her daughter does. And her daughter showed my aunt the
The picture.
what the picture, and my aunt called me and she started crying. She's like, "How could you do this? Like, why didn't you include us? Like, everyone in the family was expecting for your wedding to be above and beyond, and like kind of like what Sex in the City the gay friends had." And I was just like, that's a little bit. I was like, no.
I
I
mean,
was like,
find that find that people are upset about missing the event, but you didn't get married for them, and it's something that people don't
exactly.
understand.
Yeah.
But
But it was a lot. It was that day on June 17th of 2017, a lot of things went down. And a lot of it was just like, at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I told my husband, we were supposed to go to the museums and have a good time and just, before you left back to Mexico. Now that you're not going, welcome to my family, because this is how it's going to be. We're like, everyone's business. I'm like, and I think that's what marriage is about, because I used to see it with my mom and my dad, how my mom's sisters would like, no, 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 don't let yourself, like, don't let him, tell you what to do and things like that. And I was just like, hey, what's like, I would tell my mom, what's going on? This is your relationship.
yeah,
Why
yeah.
is your mom and your sisters getting involved? But I mean, at least my family, that's how it is. Everybody is involved and everybody's like,
So, do you
shit.
think that's more of a cultural thing?
I think it is. I think, at least because of personal experience, I've seen it in my family. We're all over each other's business. Like, if someone's doing like, if someone's sick, like, oh, how are they doing and things like that, which is natural, right? To be able to
Yeah.
like reach out and see how your relatives are doing. But when it's things like this, like my wedding, I mean, all of my cousins were even telling me like, dude, like, we were expecting something big from you. I was just like, you guys are missing the point. I mean, at the end of the day, I did it because I didn't want to lose the person that I love,
Exactly.
my best friend in any case, and I felt that when you're far away from that person that you wake up and you think about, and it's going to be hard to have a long distance relationship, and I didn't want to end it after 2.5 years. I was like, we were in our place in our lives where we were both doing amazing things, but I had to come to the States, and then he decided, you know what, I'm gonna do everything, and I'm gonna be because of you. I love you. You're
Yeah.
the one I want to be with, and you know, he's like, screw my job in Mexico, and I don't care about my apartment. And I
Really?
was like, wait, we gotta, we gotta get your at least your best friend. His best friend was really cool about it, and he's just like, don't worry, I'll take care of your things, and like, just call your job, because my husband was an actor in Mexico, so he came out in soap operas like El Señor de los Cielos, Rosario Tijeras. He was always like one of the bad villain guys.
Yeah.
So to leave that, and he also used to work for immigration in Mexico. The acting stuff was like a side job that he
On the
had. And
side.
these are things that, as a marriage, and I tell my friends, I was like, these are things that you need to know about your husband, or your the person that you're dating, that you have to know everything about their life, their family, who they're, get to know their friends, but don't make them your friends. That they're their friends. Like, I think that's something that my husband and I are always talking about and debating. Like, should my best friends in Monterrey and my two best friends in Chicago be his friends too? And I'm like, no. I'm like, you could get to know them, but I was like, because the only thing that you'll have in common with my friends is me. I'm the point of contact that
Yeah.
is aligning that relationship. But it's healthy for you to have your friends and for me to have my friends. If we're all ever together in the same room, of course there's going to be that communicative participation and getting along and things like that. But do I want to consider your best friend Hector my best friend? No, because that's your best friend.
Yeah.
He knows probably more evil things about you than I do, right? Like my friends in Monterrey know all the dark secrets, right? But then that's another thing. We tell each other's dark secrets, you know, because if we're a couple, and a lot of the times people are like, no, you shouldn't say too much, because then they'll start, like, your partner's going to start judging.
That's already a problem when you want to have that precedent of like, oh, you should have your secrets or keep it to yourself. It's like, if you have decided to live your life with that person, you know, just communicate, open up and say everything. Your life is only gonna get better once you do that. You know, nobody wants to have that weight on their shoulders about lying about something. You know, just say it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what marriage is. You have to, like, build on so many different components within a relationship that it's just it's never ending. But that's why you're getting married, because you're going to be with that person for the rest of your life, making decisions not only on your own but as a couple now, you know. And at that moment when we decided to get married, we were thinking about him and I. It was just us two, and I wasn't even thinking about my family or friends, you know. And when all of that happened, I was just like, well, it is what it is. And I did. And Javier, I didn't have, like, the big wedding that I always put in my mind that I wanted, you know. And my family's like, but you could still have that. I'm so happy and thankful that I have such a open-minded family, and that ever since I was little, they knew I was different. And my mom was my number one ally. She used to be like, oh, her sisters always putting in their little 2 cents in the situation, right? But my mom would always tell her sisters, like, you guys are just jealous that you guys don't have a creative, imaginary, wonderful kid like I do. So my mom was always, like, my number one ally. And my dad had to align to what my mom's mentality was, because my mom was so progressive. For when I was growing up in the 80s, she had, like, such a progressive mind. She wanted us, you know, she's like, I want you guys to travel. I want you guys to go to college. I want you guys to do all the things that your father and I were not able to do. So, I mean, it was good to have her on my side. But then with time, I think it always, for everything, it always takes time, to where my family, from my mom and my dad's side, they all decided, you know what? He's not any different. He's just Octavio. You know, he's fun, he's funny. And my...
Can I say something quickly? Because you said earlier, my family or my mom knew that I was different. And I was like, no, you're not different, because you're still a human being like everybody else. You were just you, and they were seeing you as who you truly were at that point. So yeah, I don't think people should consider themselves to be different, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all the same.
Yeah. I mean, my mom would say it best. He's creative and unique, and he's intelligent, and he is pure love. And me knowing that my mom was like she was like my superhero. Me growing up, they're like, who's your superhero? My mom. Because she was my number one ally. Like, she would let me do whatever I wanted. I was like, Mom, I want to wear your heels. Why? She would question, like, why? I'm like, I just want to see what a Manolo Blahnik feels like. And she's like, okay, here, you know. And it would amaze her that I was like maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I would look at her tags, and I'm like, why is this? Why are you wearing this? Like, where's this from? And she's like, how do you know this, Octavio? How? I'm like, from your Vanidades magazines that you got. And she's like, oh my God, I have to put those away from you. So it was always that I was always, era un niño muy inquieto. I was always like trying to figure stuff out.
Things up everywhere.
Yeah. And I love that about myself. And I still do, because my husband's like, you're like a unique person. Like, it is único. He's like, and I think that's what I like about you, that you make me laugh in your own little way, you know? And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's quite hard to achieve, but it's so simple to achieve at the same time for people trying to be themselves. Because sometimes they find themselves stuck in this process of trying to fit in, that they change the way they are just because they want to be liked by somebody else, especially in our community. But anyway, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Going back to your adventure of getting married and how it happened. Because I assume that you didn't have a proposal. It wasn't like, will you marry me on your knees or whatever. Do you miss that? And would you have done that differently because of it?
I think in the spare of the moment when it happened, I wasn't thinking about how I had imagined how I would have wanted the things to like been. You know, in my little mind I had created, yes, I'm gonna like get everyone involved that knows us and things like that and propose. But at the spare of the moment, it was just like it's you and I. At the end of the day, it's you and I, and that's what's most important for me.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it. I think I would have to honestly say I don't regret it because it happened at the precise moment that it needed to happen. And we were both happy with that decision. And I think that, you know, if it would have been the way I had envisioned it in my mind, there probably would have been one mishap after another mishap. And it's like when you're getting married and I seen it with my sister-in-law and like friends, like when they're getting married, they get too overwhelmed or stressed out because they want everything. Of course, it's your day. You want it to be perfect. But I don't know. For me, I started figuring things out that even if it's unplanned, it's going to be perfect. You know, and I think that I'm taking that with me that, yeah, I wouldn't want to go back and fix anything. I'll keep it as it is. I mean, I enjoyed the comments and like everybody like being upset. Even my best friend who I've known forever, Tanya, she was just like, you could have called me. And I'm like, you were the first person I was going to call when I got back to the apartment after dinner. But I mean, I know, I was just like, but you know, at the end of the day, after that happened and going forward, everyone has been supportive. Of course, everyone's still waiting for, you know, the big wedding and things like that. But our priorities have changed. Like we're in a process of closing our home. And it's like, I was like, that's not a big wedding party. I'm not thinking about it. I'm like, maybe when we've been together for 20 years or 25, I'm like, Aaron, do you want to have a silver wedding? Do you want me to propose? You know, but I think about that and I'm just like, I think I like and I love the way we did it. And, you know, people are just going to have to like eat it, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I love that mostly you, made that decision for the both of you.
So you know who runs the relationship.
I was gonna be my next question. I think it's pretty obvious who wears the pants in this relationship, or who wears the skirt, or whatever you want to wear in this relationship.
I wear the skirts and the heels. No, I would have to say it's equal. I mean, I think because I'm very spontaneous at that moment, I was the one that was, because he was like, oh, I don't know. And this is another component of what I've seen in our relationship is that he was always expecting for me to make the decisions.
Oh, okay.
And if you don't talk about that, you know, even when you're going out, because it was always all the time when we first started dating, and he was like, where do you want to go? And I would say, oh, let's go to the movies. And he would say, okay. And I never like analyzed that well because it was always me making the decisions. But here in the States, I wanted to play the other role, you know, like I'll ask him like, hey, what do you want to do? And my husband would be like, oh, whatever you want to do. But you have a say in this relationship. And he's
exactly,
like,
yeah.
He's like, I'm happy with whatever you want to do. And I'm just like,
I'm asking you a question. Give me an actual answer. Don't just agree with me.
But Javi, and that was 2017. Now in 2020, I'll be like, hey, what do you want to do this weekend? Let's go to Houston. Okay. And I'm like,
there you go.
But and it's equal. I like that because before it was me, and then it was like, okay, whatever you want to do. And now we're at the point where at times we're arguing over like, what are we gonna order for food? And he's like, I want sushi and I want tacos. And I'm like, okay, I'll get you sushi because that's what you want.
Yeah.
And I'll get tacos because that's what I want. Right.
There you go.
So it's just coming to a state of mind where what he wants is valued and what I want is valued, and we just have to communicate it. So I still think I make the decisions most of the time, but but I want to say it's equal. I mean, he's been more vocal on things.
Yeah, it looks like you guys have learned to talk about anything a lot more, communicate about anything a lot more.
Yeah.
So thank you again for sharing your amazing story of how you guys got married. So now we can move on to the other side of the topic, which is your friend's marriage. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Why marriage and this particular one you wanted to talk about?
It was pretty crazy, and I remember why I brought it up because I had never experienced that type of situation in a wedding. Was that they were ready to get married and things like that, and the day of the wedding, like a lot of things started coming about, and this was a relationship that had been together for 10 years as boyfriend and girlfriend, and it was one of those situations where you think and you see them and you're like, oh, they're happy, they got everything together and things like that. But the guy was like, he was a player, and one day before the wedding, the bridesmaid decided to like start giving all of the brides, my friends, information about her groom. And it became a little bit uncomfortable, and it was just like, okay, like, what's going on here? Like,
It sounds like a natural telenovela.
yeah. But it gets interesting because, even one day before the wedding, when a lot of us knew of this information, I was still here and like, we were actually traveling out that night. But then I was just like, crap. I was like, if we leave, and I was waiting for the best bride to say like, hey, give us the green light. I'm like, because I'm not gonna like travel all the way over there. I mean, it's 6 hours away from Austin, Monterrey.
Yeah.
But it was like, I need to make sure, that this is gonna happen, because it sounds like it's a shit show, and she's like, oh, we'll get back to you guys and things like that, or at least me, because I was the one asking questions. And I really didn't want to reach out to my friend, because then I guess she would have known, because I guess I didn't know that all the people in the wedding that were like participating and things like that were already getting the information. And at the end of the day, it came down that it was the guy was cheating on her with another guy. Was the guy was bisexual? I mean, gay? I don't know, but it was one of those situations where it was just like, where do you go from here? Especially for my friend. I'm not gonna say names or anything, because I don't even know if I'm supposed to be sharing this. But yeah, it was one of those situations where, again, I go back to my friends and I say it's a process, but sometimes within the process you don't understand, or you don't know who you're with at the same time as well. I think that's why it was super important for me to know who my husband's friends were, who his family was, like every little thing you could get. And I think my friend, the bride that was getting married to this guy, wasn't fully aware of the person that she was going to marry. And I
Even
mean,
after 10 years, yeah.
And it was just like, I felt more bad for her. Everybody was just like, how dare he? They were, they were giving him like a lot of the negative stuff and things like that. And it was just like, I wanted to put him on the side and just be like, hey, like, it's not cool what you did, but you only know what you're going through, your own personal issues. I'm no one to judge. The only thing I was able to do is just, comfort my friend, be like, hey, everything's going to be okay. Maybe this is a sign, and I even told her, talk to him. Don't listen to everyone. Listen to your heart.
Yeah.
Listen to what your heart is telling you, because it's 10 years. And as vile as everything sounds, or what he did is bad, I'm like, yes, it's bad.
So
I'm not going to judge him.
So all of this came out the day before or the same day?
the day before the wedding, and the next day she didn't show up to the church. He was at the church waiting for her. He
But
didn't know
he did
when
exactly. He didn't know that she knew.
yeah. So when they all got to the church the next day, I didn't go. I was here in Austin. I was told Aaron, you better unpack the maletas because I'm waiting for the last call. And it was, he's like, are you, this is, I was like, it's insane. I was like, you always want to believe half of it. And I think at that point, I was more concerned about my friend who was the bride. And I was worried about what she was going, like what was going through her head. I didn't want to reach out because she wouldn't have listened anyhow. She would have been like in this bitch mode or whatever. Like, I mean, I didn't want to trigger it more. But when I was able to talk to her like a week later, I was just like, how cold is your mind? Because I was like, I'm going to be going to Monterrey for my birthday and I want to see you. That way we could talk. And she's like, yeah, I want to see you when you're here. So when I was in Monterrey, before that on the phone, I had told her, listen to your heart. You were in a relationship for 10 years. You were in love with this person. I'm not justifying that what he did it's wrong. No one should ever have to go through anything like that, especially the day before your wedding. Second of all, I was like, you got to get rid of your toxic friend because her friend.
I was gonna say, second,
I'm like, her friend. I'm like, there's ways to say a situation, right? And maybe she was just brutally blunt, but this other, her best friend, I personally don't like her. I never did. I mean, I got along with her because of my friend, but it's life. You like people, you don't like people. They like you, they don't like you, But my opinion was because of how her character is. She's like this loud, outspoken. She wants everybody to be unhappy just like her, whatever. And I just think that it was shitty what she, like, if she had this information even before the wedding,
that moment.
she chose that day to tell her, that's shitty, and I was just like, no. And when I was in Monterrey and everything came back out again, she's just like, Erin and I were just like, just have the tissue ready because I know she's gonna cry. But no, she was a strong little butterfly. She was like, you know what? You're always saying, Octavio, life experiences happen. You either take the negative and make it into a positive, and like, I sat down with him and I took that advice that you were the only one that gave me because everybody wanted me to kill him or like kick his ass or like slap him. Like they wanted to make a bad situation worse, And I was like, you're not gonna win anything by hitting him or like maldiciéndole. I was like, every time you think about him now, just send him your light. Be like, I wish him the best because he's probably gonna do the same thing for you, regardless if you believe it or not. And she's just like, yeah, I know. She's like, you were the only one that actually gave me that positive feedback, like forgive, and I did, and I talked to him and I was like, and what happened now? Are you guys friends? Are you guys gonna go shopping now? Or like what?
Yeah, what's happening? I wanna
know. And she was just like, you're so funny. I was just like, no, it's like you have to be able to understand why it happened. I was like, and you still need time to heal and like I was telling my husband and he's like, don't get any ideas. You already invited your cousin to it. Because we went to Merida as well. And I took one of my favorite cousins. And I was this close to inviting her and paying for my friend's like trip. I'm like, do you want to go with us to Merida? Maybe this is what you need. And my husband's like, don't. She needs her time. She doesn't need to be.
Everybody still in time to heal in their own space. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I want to talk about marriage because even in a straight world or whatever, I mean, I tell my friend, you see, if you would have done it like I did it, you would have saved yourself a lot of money.
Yeah.
I was like, but then again, I go back and I think about it. I was like, but then again, no, because you would have never found out about that detailed piece. Of that of your relationship
for a reason. Yeah,
everything and you see, everything happens for a reason, and it goes back to what my mom used to say: it's put on in a platter for you when the moment is precise.
Wise,
not the correct moment of how her toxic friend did it, but it came out. And I think that in a marriage, you have to know everything. You have to know everything, everything. Even when you're dating before you get married, smell his farts. I mean, to that granular point, to that granular point, you know, you got to get into, yes,
I mean,
smell it.
that is a topic for another discussion.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's why I was like, we should talk about marriage because I mean, people need to understand that not everything is like pretty and pink. I mean, everyone has their ups and downs in a relationship. Even when I was like, I'm only speaking from my experience, and I want to say that because people who are probably watching are probably like, no, that's not true. My relationship, my marriage has been 100% always white and pink, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I want to be your friend because I need to get some tips from, you know, having a healthy marriage. Because, you know, again, I go back, there's times with Aaron and I just want to bite our heads off. Or like, I know that there's like an argument that's going to start. I walk away. I'm like, you know what? Have your moment.
Let's just take a break.
Yeah. And that's healthy. Just make sure to go back and discuss, hey, what just happened? Like, why did it happen?
Healthy is finding that balance. And what you do, it does help. But it might not work for everybody. Some people might want to just solve the problem there and then. But taking the time to actually think things through, it does make a difference. So I find myself angry at some situation and I write down an email, but I don't send it. And then like 20 minutes later, I come back and I remove like 45% of the email. So I take away all the anger and I just send it's that message that I wanted to get through. So marriage is about communication, about patience, about getting to know each other for as much and for as long as possible. Because I think no matter how long you've been together, you're going to discover new things tomorrow about your partner that you didn't know. And that doesn't mean that you didn't know him well. It just meant that, you know, maybe he didn't even know that about himself or about himself. So it is about, you know, patience and getting to know each other, which a lot of us don't have.
True. I mean, and other thing is just adjusting to each other's habits, because my pet peeve is my friends in Monterrey call me Monica Geller for a reason. And I am the most organized and I love decluttering things. I like having, you know, a nice organized space. You know, I'm very clean, and he had to adjust to that because, you know, there's a way I like things around the house, and I'll notice if something gets moved, and he'll be like, he's like, those are psychopath mentalities. And I'm like, no, it's just being maybe OCD. It's just OCD, maybe just me or whatnot. But that's how I feel. I'm like, that's just one of my habits, you know, like your habit is to go to the gym and like, you know, work out. I'll do it, but like not every single day like you do. I'm like, and I like to have a clean apartment. I like everything. He's like, I get it, but you having post-its of what you're gonna wear each day, that's what's driving me crazy. So I brought the insanity down.
Do that?
Yes, I used to. Not anymore. I started taking the post-its out, but I'll still organize in my mind. Okay, I've already wore this, put it all the way to the back. But yeah, my friends in Mexico, if they see this podcast, they're gonna be like, oh my God, Octavio. Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh my God, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it's habits that you have to also get used to, like, you know, understanding each other's habits and things like that. So, you know, that's something that he's now okay with. And he's just like, you know what? I'm happy that you're super clean, because he doesn't do the laundry. I do the laundry because I like to do the laundry. I like to fold my clothes. And I think I blame this for those 10 years that I worked at Gap and Banana Republic. I was a manager at Banana, and it was always like folding clothes and like stock. And it's like, it got me that mentality that I am like super organized in my house. I know where everything's at. I'm telling you, the home would come here and they'd be like, oh my God, yes. Yes.
Okay. So what advice would you give to somebody that it is thinking about marriage, but they're not sure what to do, especially if it's a gay couple and they think that family might not agree with that, or friends might not agree with that if they're not entirely out to these people. What advice would you give to them?
I think the advice that I would give to them is that they both need to agree that that's something that they want, and they need to like just eliminate the opinions that are external to their situation. Their situation is between them two. It's an internal situation between two, not between three or four or five or family and friends. So I think the best advice I could give there is because of experience is follow what your gut, your heart is saying. And if you love that person and if that person loves you in return the same way you do, go for it, and let the comments and the negativity or whatever come after, but make sure that when you're making that decision, that it's just you and your partner, are aligning to that's what you want. And I think that's like the advice I could give, because that's what I based mine on.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, your advice, again, as I've been saying earlier, some things might work for some people, some things might not work for others.
Correct.
For the ones listening, if they have any other topics, please leave it on the comments or any advice that you actually want to give to other people as well. So, any last words or anything that you wanted to discuss that we didn't get to talk within this time?
I mean, like I said at the beginning, I'm not an expert. Marriage is something that I wanted to talk to you about, because within LGBTQ plus community, I guess I've heard comments on the side like it's rare to see a couple like you and your husband that are so, like this, and you guys have your stuff together, and like they don't know what goes inside of our relationship either. So I like to be as transparent as possible. Yes, Aaron and I have had our ups and downs, but at the end of the day, even when I felt like I just don't want to be with you, like, those moments, it's like, no. Why is this happening? Like, let's take accountability. If it's me, let's work on it. Right. And love that person that you're with. At the end of the day, that's who I chose to be with. But then I also wanted to talk about my friend's situation, because one day before her wedding, and it's not always that it seems. You have a good, bad. There's all different types of experiences. But in a marriage, I always look at my parents' example. They were almost married for 40 years before my mom passed away, and they would still argue over who was going to pay for dinner that night. I mean, things like that it's just like, I want that, but it took time, and if you're out there and you're one of those persons like my friends, like, I want that. Patience is a virtue. My grandmother used to say, Patience is a virtue, and you just have to be patient, and that don't think about it. I want it. Because I tell my friends, I didn't want it, and when I say I didn't want it, it happened. And I'm happy that it did, because this person, I love my husband 100, here to the moon, back, infinity, whatever, I'll take a bullet for him, things like that, to that extent. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I totally agree. I think people should understand that marriage is not a dress or a pair of trousers that you buy at the shop just like that. There is a process to get to where you guys are, and it doesn't happen overnight. So patience, getting to know each other, and understanding that it's not going to be a smooth ride all the time. You're going to have problems. There are going to be arguments, disagreements, and this is normal. This is just part of a situation when two people are living with two different minds and two different brains. You're not gonna agree all the time, and that's just the way it's gonna be. But learning to communicate those issues and talking about them is what's gonna help you get to that point where you guys are now, that you can actually argue, take that step back, and then come back with a clear mind and actually discuss the topic, and then fix it and move on. So
true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Patience and smell farts and whatever.
That was such a bad example, but I mean, it happens. It happens. I mean, I, but yeah, I mean, just like you said, patience, communication, love. I think that's very important too. Um, and understanding each other's, like life experiences, even before you guys were a couple. Like what was
Also
his
boundaries, respect
boundaries?
boundaries.
Exactly, boundaries. And and give it a go. Just don't be spontaneous like me
Maybe,
because
yeah, I was gonna say maybe what you did is not gonna work for
don't
everybody.
be
So
spontaneous like me.
I
Like
love that story, by the way. I love it.
I laugh at it. I laugh at it because I mean, I go back and I think about it. I'm just like, I wouldn't change it, but I'm so happy that I did it the way I did because I tell this story to everyone or my experience, and they're like, oh my god, but it's funny because you are spontaneous, but they're like, I was like, I did what I had to do to keep the guy that I love in this country with me, and at the end of the day, I'm fine with that, and I'm
Yeah,
happy.
totally. All right, Octavio, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your story and your input on marriage and your experience with yourself and with your friend as well. I hope she's doing well, though. I don't know how long ago this was, but that was like quite a hard
She's
situation.
waiting for this COVID stuff to get over with because she's been talking to someone. She told me a little. She's been talking to someone in London, so I'm like, I'm hoping it happens.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
I'm
fingers
like,
crossed, who knows? But again, getting to know each other for a while before you actually maybe make decisions like this, because it is a hard thing. Sorry, it is a hard decision and it's an important decision. So there
yeah.
you go, guys. For the ones listening, thank you again for for being here with us today, and I hope to see you soon on another episode, Octavio.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or want to stay in touch, you can find me on Instagram at My Queer Family Podcast. Until next time.